My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. So today I want to do a show that's going to be, content-wise, a lot different than what I've been doing lately. But I've had a lot on my mind, and I really want to do this show. I think it's important. I've had a lot of thoughts about the NFL, which is the National Football League. So I want to talk about it in its present state. I want to talk about the history, and I want to talk about the recent concussions of Tua Tagovailoa. I think that might be the last time I say that. Tagovailoa. It's really hard to say. I think I'm just going to say Tua. Anyway, I want to talk about that, but I want to also connect that to mental health in our society today. And I can actually tie this into Jeffrey Dahmer as well. So I know it's going to seem a little weird, and it might be a little bit all over the place. But I'm going to put this all together, and hopefully it is valuable to some people out there. Why am I doing this show? I'm doing it also because I see a lot of comments about these concussions. That, again, the two major ones of Tua Tagovailoa. See, there I said it again. But the fix on this, again, is more damaging than the problem itself. And I see this on and on and on, whether it's in sports, whether it's in mental health, and it's just something needs to be said because I haven't seen anybody really give the right answer yet, as far as I can see. So I'm going to talk about that today. But let me say right up front, I saw both of those concussions. It's a horrible, horrible thing to witness. Nobody would want anybody to go through that. It was a terrible, terrible thing to happen. Everybody involved should get fired. Not for the reason that he got hit, but because they put him back in there after having a concussion. That's just unforgivable. That should never happen. We do have to care about the safety of human beings, no doubt about that. And they didn't do that on that one. So everybody involved, there's no justification for their mishandling of that situation. So let's take it from the top. Let's talk about some history of football. I think I want to start there because I love football. I played football for many years, over 10 years. And let me state this just in case if you're seeing me for the first time. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am a personal trainer, and I have been for about 35 years. In terms of bodybuilding, I've competed on the national level for, oh God, I don't know, 10, 20 years. So it's been most of my life. And I've been training since I've been about 10 years old. In terms of football, I started when I was 8 years old. So I had many years of playing football and many years of experience. So I'm going to bring all of that together today to try to do this show. So let's take it from the top. The way football is now, I mean, to take away any clinical terms of it, I just say, because I want to talk as a human today, football sucks. It's not football. I have a hard time watching it. It's not even close to being football. And in psychology, we use a term called gaslighting. And it's not just when somebody lies to you. It's when somebody tries to distort your whole reality. And when I watch football now, the whole thing is a distortion of reality. These announcers they're obviously, somehow, they're getting paid to talk, but they're also probably on the threat of being fired if they talk about something like a hard hit, for example. Like when there's a hard hit, they pull the camera away, they don't show it to you. And so let's go, like, first of all, you can't really touch the quarterback anymore. That's ridiculous. That's number one. Number two, there's receivers running all over the field with really no fear because they have no fear of getting hit. You know, I mean, and they're not going to take shots. Like it used to be that to be a good receiver, you also had to have a lot of courage and toughness because you were going to get smacked going over the middle. This isn't football anymore. These are just really fast guys running all over the field. And it's not football. Now, every time a receiver makes a catch, I would say 50% of the time they can't wait to aim for the sideline. Now, I can tell you, I started playing football when I was 8 years old. If you had the ball in your hand when you were 8 and you ran for the sideline, first of all, they would say, listen, you need to go over and sit on the sidelines with your parents or something, or just quit. Because you can't play football if you're going to be that afraid. You know, I can't understand it. In football now, tell me who the tough running backs are. How many people have real good running games that they just run the ball time after time? We used to call it smash mouth football. You're not even allowed to say the term smash mouth football. You know, the term forearm smash, it's illegal. You can't even do that anymore. You know, so let's be honest, it's not football. It used to be that the announcers would highlight the hits. They would name it, they would talk about it, they would show it to you multiple times. Even the halftime show, they would have, I think it was halftime before the football game even started, they would have the two helmets together, and then they would like smash them, and you know, you would see that, and everybody would cheer because they know there's going to be some good hard hits during the game. Let me just reach down for a second. Actually, I had a subscription to Sports Illustrated magazine, and if you got a year subscription, they would send you a tape. And one of the tapes that they would send you, at least I got a few of them, was the best hard hits of the year. It was set to music. Like, everybody looked forward to all these hard hits. And even the way the announcers spoke. Like Troy Aikman the other day, I think it was last week, said something to the effect of, because he knew that the quarterback, it was a normal play, and there's a flag on it. There should never have been a flag on that play. And he said, well, maybe we should take the dresses off quarterbacks. And he gets in trouble now on social media. Now they're looking to take away his job. Over what? I don't get that. I mean, in normal society, men are told not to hit women. Typically, women wear dresses. So he said, take the dress off, so then it would allow us to hit them. That makes sense. It makes sense to any normal person that walks this earth. But so what's the complaint? That it's sexist now? Listen, I know men can wear dresses. I get that. But for the most part, they don't. So it doesn't make sense to say that. As a matter of fact, it really takes away from the game that he's not allowed to talk like that. I remember back in the day, John Madden was the best announcer ever. And just to give you a quick lesson, if you want. So you have the center, right? Then you would have the guard and the tackle. And in between, those are numbered. Now, I don't know, each team can number differently, but typically it could be on, let's say on one side it could be 2, 4, 6, and 8. The other side, 1, 3, 5, 7. And so you could say, run it up the one gap or the one hole, no problem. But you could also number them or label them in letters. So the center and the guard, the letter could be A. So you could call it the A gap. Or as John Madden would say, he said it one time on TV, and he said, yeah, they're shoving it up their A-hole today. Like you're allowed, and it was funny, and everybody gets it. They know what he said was actually a football term, but it's funny. Nobody called for him to be canceled and fired, and he was a terrible human being. We all laughed. We loved listening to him. So football's not what it used to be at all. And one of the reasons is because they understand concussions today. And here's the thing. Is the answer to make it that they basically are not hitting anymore and that you're not allowed to hit in the head? Is that the answer? I think that's part of the answer, right? You shouldn't go around spearing and headshotting people. Maybe that makes sense. And of course it makes sense. But here's the problem. You're playing football. There's a good chance you're going to get hit in the head. What happens if you're not ready for that? So what we're seeing here again and again and again is to try to make the rules weaker and weaker in a sense, or stronger and stronger, so these players don't get touched. And where is their training going? Because they're not going to spend time working on the things that they should. Because here's where the difference is. Do I believe that they should go back to just ramming people in the skull and causing concussions? No, I don't. Okay, that's number one. Let's have empathy and compassion for humans. Got it. But here's the thing. If you want to have true empathy and compassion and want to get something done, you got to do it the right way. You can't just say you can't touch this guy, we'll go throw a flag. Because let's go back to the Tua Tagovailoa hit. He didn't get hit. He got tapped with a hand, and he went flying backwards and hit his head. He's a great professional athlete, but he's not trained well, not for football, not for getting hit. He's trained for doing what he does. But because the rules are so soft, these coaches, who wherever they are, in the pros, college, or all the way up through Pop Warner, they're not training these guys for the off chance that they might get hit in the head. And you have to do that. I think it might be the equivalent of, let's say you have a car and you want to increase the horsepower of the car. And so you add things to it, whatever you do. Fix it, soup up the car, okay, it's faster. But you never do anything about the ball tires. So what happens is you're actually making yourself in a situation where there's a lot more danger to be had when you're moving faster, but you don't have control of your vehicle. I hope that I'm explaining that correctly. Because what we're having here are men who do weigh a lot, and they are fast, and they're moving it all over the place. But they're not trained to get hit in the head, and nobody's talking about this. Everybody's talking about making the rules better. Like, let's just take their helmets off so they don't touch each other, you know? But they're not talking about the main thing. So instead of just babbling on about this, I'm gonna say it. These people are untrained in the correct way. Although, when I was young, we started at 8 years old, we started doing neck bridges. And if you don't know what a neck bridge, that's why I got this thing over here. You would literally put your head, it's the best thing I could come up with, okay? I don't have dolls around my house. Anyway, you would put your head on the ground and basically all your weight. And then from there, you would see the flexibility in the spine. You would then flip over this way and have your head on the ground. So we're getting flexibility in the back, but we're also learning to move the spine. Now, Tua Tagovailoa, he got a little touch in the shoulder, and he fell down like an old man. Whack, right on his head. That should never happen with a professional athlete. Never, ever, ever. The fact that he went down like a snake when he just went and snapped his head tells me that he's got a noodle neck. Sorry, I don't want to be mean, but listen, if you follow a neck training protocol, none of this would have happened, because that shouldn't happen on to any professional athlete. His head shouldn't be whipping back and forth because he doesn't train his neck. So the second shot he had, of course, it was because of the previous concussion. I get that. But the second one wasn't even that violent either, because when the guy swung him, he was literally sitting on the field when he swung him, because he had already fallen down. So he wasn't getting full force. He wasn't being thrown from 6 feet in the air. The guy was literally sitting on the ground and twisted. And what happened? Head, whoop, like a noodle, smashes the ground. Why? That should never happen, ever, if you're trained correctly. And I see all of this stuff. Oh, football is this. Maybe we should stop playing football. Maybe we should take their helmets off. Maybe we should make it easier for them, and so they can't hit at all, or whatever. Make it easy, like never touch the quarterback. But the thing is, though, if they stop their neck training, every time, even that off chance that they might get hit is going to cause major damage. They're not training. So again, even at 8 years old, we would sit down and we would have somebody push our heads this way, and we would push back, and they would push from this direction, then push from the back, then push from the front. It was incredible amount of neck training, even starting at 8 years old. And then when we hit, we would do light hitting. So you get used to it. These things have to be done. When you get hit on a football field in the head, it shouldn't be the very first time. You have to have sub-maximal pressure in some way so you can build up to it. Let's move on from that. What am I saying? I'm saying that they're undertrained. They need to train their necks. Now, I got this picture over here just to show something. This is when I was 21 years old. I don't know if you can really see this. But if you look, the sternocleidomastoid muscle here is in bold relief. It's practically popping out of my chest all the way up underneath my ear. And if you look at the other side of my neck, you can see that my neck at that time when I was training for impact in combat, my neck was probably wider than my head. That's not something to brag about. That's just something that needs to be done in order to stay safe. And if you have a neck that's that trained, somebody pushes you, you're not going to snap back all the time. So again, it's a training problem. So what I saw last week is that now they're getting even softer on these quarterbacks, and they're throwing flags everywhere. And now it's going to get to the point where you can't even play because they're going to be so weak that they're not even going to actually be able to hit at all. I saw two guys last week, they barely touched helmets and they're on the ground. It's because their bodies are incredibly trained, right? They're big, strong, fast. But what are they doing with their necks? That they pop each other and they're both on the ground squirming. Like, it makes no sense to me. And of course, they pulled the camera back, they didn't show it again. It's like, why? Why are you so afraid? You know, that used to be one of the best parts of it. You know, that's the part we want to see warriors. We don't just want to see a bunch of noodle neck guys that are afraid to get hit. It's insane. So what does this have anything to do with mental health? Well, this is what I'm tying it into, because I love training, I love football, and obviously as a therapist, I love psychology and therapy. Well, this type of mentality is ruining everything, and it's ruining the whole world. So right now, I would say that we have more empathy and compassion in the world than we have in a long time. I mean, we're seeing it all over the place, right? Like, we're accepting minorities more. We're accepting people with sexual, preferences that are different than, quote unquote, the normal. Now, listen, I know that there's a group of people out there, and I don't want to get political, that are fighting against this tooth and nail. I understand. But overall, compared to when I graduated high school in 1983, there were things that you couldn't talk about then. Now, at least it's out in the open, you can talk about it, and there are safe places for people who are not the majority. And I love that. I think we're moving in the right direction. It's not even close to being perfect, but I think it's going in the right direction. And I like the fact that when we're dealing with people that are more towards the minority, that we're not just talking about tolerating them, because I think that's a horrible word. I think acceptance is the word that we're actually looking for. I love that in a lot of schools right now, they're trying to push social and emotional learning, not just the whole reading, writing, and arithmetic, although that's very important. I also think social and emotional learning is important too. And I'm absolutely thrilled that they're doing that. Also, from what I could say from my standpoint, I live in Clark County. Clark County right now is looking for a whole bunch of trauma therapists. Now, we're not talking about just the usual guidance counselors. We're talking about people that come in that are actually trauma experts. And again, I love that. The awareness that we're having now of how childhood trauma is so important that we have to resolve those issues. I think it's great. We're definitely moving in the right direction. So let me talk about Jeffrey Dahmer for a second. Like, how does that? So I watched the 10-part Netflix series. What is interesting about it was that I was very much alive and conscious in 1990 or early 90s when all this was happening and it was put in the news. One of the things that kept coming out, and I don't think that my memory is off, I just think that people are trying to change things now, because now we're watching a show like 32 years later or 30 years later, and they're putting a little twist on it. And I noticed it because I was alive for the first part of this. They said that Jeffrey Dahmer came from your average, basic, middle-class family. Now, his parents got divorced when he was like 17 or 18, but other than that, he really had no trauma in his life. There were no beatings, nothing like that. Like, he wasn't treated poorly. That's the 1990 version. Well, in the year 2022 version, we know a lot about complex post-traumatic stress. And so we can take that template, which is new, pretty new, and then put it on 1990, and now you're starting to hear things like his parents argued all the time. He never had a safe place to be. He had complete emotional disconnection from both of his parents. He was never emotionally supported. He always felt unsafe, insecure. And so we start to see, again, not giving him any excuses. What I'm saying is that even when I went to graduate school, you know how much time we spent on complex post-traumatic stress? exactly 0 minutes because it wasn't even in our curriculum. It wasn't a part of it. And I love the fact that we're learning more and more. And it's becoming great because so many people out there I know experience incredible trauma and have really, really difficult symptoms that they have to work through that normally somebody would say, well, your parents were fine. Like, what are you talking about? You had food, didn't you? You didn't get punched in the face, did you? Nobody starved you. But we understand now that relational trauma or attachment trauma is extremely important to know. So I love that we're moving in that direction. So again, I think as a society in terms of mental health and being aware and conscious, A+. I think, we're really going in the right direction. I saw this lady the other day. She was on a TED Talk, and she was talking about the issues that a lot of young adults have today. And I agreed with her. But then she got to her conclusion of how to make it better and to fix it. Her conclusion is that children should not have to compete in anything. In other words, in sporting events, and if you do sporting event, there should be no scores. You should just have them just go out there and just play. Like, who cares about the score? They shouldn't even be scored or graded in their classrooms because it can make them feel bad if they don't get the same grade as their friend did. So she was saying that basically that children should have no or to very little standards to live up to because we don't want to make them feel bad about themselves. Well, I 100% disagree with that. This is where I'm connecting it. Our society is becoming so weak. We're not training people to be more powerful in their lives, especially in a very unpredictable society. We're not training them to do that. We're trying to be overly empathetic and compassionate to the point where we're not any of those things because we're putting them through more danger and more hurt and definitely more mental disorders because we're not preparing them for life. So all the trainers out there with these football players, they're not training them for actual football anymore because you're still gonna get hit in the head and you have to prepare for the worst. And it's the same thing with raising children. You have to prepare for the worst. Listen, I hope that everybody out there has everything they want and everything is golden, but it's not gonna be that way, right? You have to work hard for things. If you don't believe me, let's look over some of the evidence. How are young adults doing today with this incredible empathy and compassion and this thought that we should just pave the road for them and make everything so easy and we coddle them and micromanage them and baby them? How are they doing? We can take a look at it and see if all that is working. Well, it's easy. The average 18-year-old today has the emotional maturity of a 13-year-old. That's what we did. And the average 25-year-old today has the emotional maturity of less than 18 years. That's really sad. We're destroying these kids. And we're making it that their future not only is uncertain, but is going to be, there's a lot of negativity around the corner for them. Where are they going to get mature? How is it going to happen? By the time they're 18 to 25 years old, they're going to develop maturity? It's possible, but there's nothing that underpins that they have something to fall back on. Let's talk about this more. There's more depression now than there ever was for young adults. There's more anxiety. For example, I graduated in 1983. I didn't know what the word anxiety meant. I've never heard the word before. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that nobody talked about it. No, it was just normal. I don't remember anybody that had to take pills or prescribed medication. I don't remember anybody that took prescribed medication back then. Right now, if you're 25 and under, there's about a 25% chance that you have been or you are on psychotropic meds. That's 1 out of every 4. So how are we doing with mental health? We suck. That's the answer. We do. So the depression is up, the anxiety is up, suicidal ideations are up. suicides that they follow through on, all those are up. Why should they be? What, life is more stressful now? Listen, the crime rate has been going down since the 1990s. They have a lot less to worry about now than they did then. Somebody's going to say, well, social media. Social media? You mean somebody typing something on social media that they got a new bicycle or a new car that hurts you so much that it makes you depressed? On social media? I used to walk down the street and watch people drive down the street in Camaros and new Mustangs and Corvettes. That you could literally see it in front of you. You go to the high school and see a parking lot filled with cars. You know, but oh no, you're going to be worried about somebody posting a picture? That has a lot to do with the weakness in the human beings. And I'm not making fun of kids here. It's the parents who are not teaching them. So again, so how are we doing? We're not doing very well. That's the answer. So what we need to do here is to actually train people for life. If we want to have true empathy and compassion, we have to put children through age-appropriate developmental situations for them. We have to put them through situations where they're going to have anxiety, but we support them as they go through it. And as a society, again, when we're looking at football, because I'm tying this back to the concussions, I'm seeing everybody throw their hands up going, oh my God, these owners and all these people, they're so terrible. And football is just, it's a blood sport. We should never play it again. Well, most of the people making these comments are all these little children with their anxiety and depression, you know, through the roof. My question would be is, when do we start making people stronger? When do we do that? Because if you have true empathy and compassion, you care about the results. And the results right now are resoundingly poor. So if you're going to tell me you have empathy and compassion, but yet you're killing people, I'm going to say your empathy and compassion is just not in the right place. You need to train people correctly. Again, as my job as a marriage and family therapist, it's like I work with kids a lot, or teenagers, and I'll say, hey, you know, why don't you think of something physical? You can get involved with other kids, you know, get involved in the community. Why don't you play soccer? You know, that's not as violent as football. Like, oh, I might get hit in the head with the ball. What? You might get hit in the head with, who told you that? Like, who's putting that in your head that you're going to die from getting hit in the head with a soccer ball? Then you get these kids, they go to building, and they're looking for the elevator. And it's not just because they're sedentary and lazy, but a lot of them are. They're literally afraid to take the stairs because they might fall down the stairs. Oh my God, how sad. Like, we are really doing a bad job in this country. This is almost 30 minutes long, so let me just finish up with this. I love the fact that overall we're trying our best to be more emotional with people. We're trying to be more compassionate. We're trying to be more supportive. But I can tell you, all the evidence states that we're doing it in absolutely the wrong ways. That's number one. And number two, as it goes to sports, sporting events, participating in sports should be a huge part of a young person's life. And the fact that we're making these kids scared to death that they can't do it because they're all going to get hurt, it is ridiculous as well. Again, you're not helping them by making them afraid of everything. And as far as the NFL is concerned, with more education about concussions, I'm all about it. I don't think we should maybe glorify headshots all day long. I get that. However, if you're gonna make it to where the rules is that you're trying to limit the amount of shots they take to the head, I think it's absolute and 100% negligence if you are either a trainer, because you should know better, or the athlete themselves, who doesn't take it upon themselves to go through a massive, incredible, rigorous neck training routine. That's what you have to do. You have to become strong and you have to become flexible. I was watching a show the other day on Shaolin monks, and they had a bunch of them starting from like when they were 5 years old, and they were able to do head rolls or somersaults with no hands. They were literally had the flexibility to put their head on the ground and then spin forwards and back. And that's the thing as well. Back in the day, you trained for that. Your head didn't just snap back and you weren't a board. You would know how to fall. And I would say a large percentage of the football players They also did wrestling. In wrestling, again, neck bridges. It's all about the push-pull on the head to make yourself strong and powerful. It was a sign of power to have big traps and a big neck. Now it's like people are shying away, and they haven't been hitting in football for like a decade now. So when you look at it, you're seeing these 18, 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds that have gone through a generation who don't even know, honestly, how football is really meant to be played. So you're getting these people that are genetic monsters. 6'5", let's say, 270 pounds, a genetic monster, or a wide receiver, whatever, 5'10", 190, but super speed. They're genetic brilliantly in every area, except the fact that they have no idea what toughness is, and they have no idea how to work hard on their neck muscles, because you're going to take a shot one day. And if you care about yourself, you care about your family, you care about anything, you should be training for it. I don't care if you never get hit in the head again. If you're going to play that sport, you need to be trained for the time that you might take that shot. And stop complaining that, oh my God, I got a concussion. Well, right, you're not training well. So let me leave you with that. Hopefully that was valuable in some way. My name is Joe Prony, and this is the Rise Above Project. Thank you.